Hello, and welcome to another Friday episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today I have my friend Alex Lynn here to help go over the hacker news for the week. Alex, thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
So we skipped last week in order to bring you one of our more technical streams, but we're going to get back to the news, and we have a lot to go over. And my favorite story, if we switch over to my screen, is actually this story, which is a series of tweets by Governor Mike Parson that pretty clearly demonstrate that he doesn't understand what responsible disclosure is and the right way to deal with the mistake by his government. So in this case, Alex, did you read any of the specifics about what happened here?
Yeah, it's a pretty ridiculous and confusing situation.
Yeah, so can you explain a little bit about what broad strokes what happened?
I don't know exactly what the researcher did, but I think they looked into the HTML source code of a website and they found some pretty revealing information, like the social security numbers of some people or something like that. And this governor mistook it as some special decoding process where this person hacked into the website or something crazy like that and made a huge deal out of it.
Yeah, so imagine, you have to use this system and you go in and you find that oh, wow, it's disclosing a lot more information than it should. If anybody were to just right mouse click on this and look at the source code, they could actually just see way more information than was actually supposed to be revealed here. So there was a reporter who went and discovered this information, and they went through the entire responsible disclosure process. And they even went through the steps of making sure that this had been fixed before they went forward and actually had it made public. So this was unfortunately misinterpreted by the governor as hacking. And really, this guy got dragged for this ridiculous tweet because you can just see the absolute amount of ratios. 8,000 quote tweets, 1,000 likes.
That's a huge ratio.
That's a pretty ridiculous ratio. So, lots of people in the cybersecurity community felt like this sort of thing will have a chilling effect if people in the government decide to reach out and instead of thank the people who have found various flaws, go to the Highway Patrol's digital forensic unit to investigate this reporter for a crime. So I don't know if this person was maybe speeding in a car while they were browsing the HTML source code of this website. But it's just funny to me that this guy is who can I bother about this? Fired off a series of really ridiculous tweets and basically earned the scorn of almost the entire cybersecurity industry by just misinterpreting what happened here. So Alex, if there's information that is in the HTML source code of a website, what's the process for a hacker to be able to view this information?
It's actually kind of complicated. So what you do, there's special tools. You'll need a mouse. So on your mouse, you would want to hit the right click button. And this is going to give you access to a special menu where you can inspect and decode the HTML source code. And you're going to go ahead and click on this little button that says inspect. Now, when you click on this, it actually hacks into their databases and then pulls up all of the source codes containing the social security numbers of various high-profile government agents.
Wow. All right. Well, that's it sounds like you really need some sort of degree in computer science to get into this. So obviously just being able to, watch me here. Let's do something that Governor Parsons won't like. All right, let's hack Governor Parsons.
Oh my God.
So I'm going to right mouse click this and click on inspect. And
how did you do that?
Oh, hacking. I had to go to school for years. And I'm going to say
Dingus Mike Parson.
And unfortunately, guys, it is just that easy for somebody to hack your page. Look at that. I, without permission, hacked Mike Parson. So you can see this is very silly. Anybody who right mouse clicks on it, even if it had just an open API where you could make a call, this is still not a crime. Not a crime. It's not a crime. You're not breaching any passwords. You're not accessing stuff that's supposed to be private and has authentication properly configured. If you're just exposing social security numbers and someone is able to do that in order to look into the source code here, then the problem is not with the person who found that breach. It's with the entity who was exposing personal information. So if you don't want to take responsibility, that's fine. But going to the Highway Patrol and bothering their poor forensic unit is just a very silly thing to do. And frankly, when people feel scared to speak up about vulnerabilities they find, and then boom, there's a ransomware attack, or the social security information is used to scam people. This is really like the wrong response, because it makes nobody want to come forward and actually help make things better. I mean, it sounds like this reporter really wanted to make the world a better place by making sure that this was fixed and only reporting on it after it had been fixed. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I would have tried to do this. So it's just very funny that the definition of hacking here is literally just finding information that these guys messed up and left online. It's really kind of a sliding scale what hacking is, but I would dare say that, this is not criminal hacking, because if you're the one that makes the mistake, going after the people who kind of showed that mistake to be out there and happening is not really a good fit. So Dingus, Mike Parson should probably hire a PR person, just because it does not seem like this sort of modification of HTML or viewing of HTML is really criminal hacking. I would say it's like a little bit more unethical, or almost maybe even criminal, to expose personal information of government employees. But what are you going to do? So speaking of finding information on the internet, one of my favorite tools for this is Maltego, and they put together a really good list of resources for anyone who's just getting started and wants to know how to find information online. So I'm not saying that the person who found this was using Maltego, but they maybe they could have been, because there's all these different plugins that allow you to find information from these different data sources. So if I wanted to, and some of these are paid, some of them are not, but Shodan, for example, and VirusTotal have plugins. So if you are looking at a URL, for example, or a file, you can very easily check it to see, is this in VirusTotal? You can look on Shodan to see where it might be hosted, or see if there's any malicious activity flagged with this. Really, really interesting way of using Shodan or other sorts of data sources to enrich whatever sort of investigation you're doing. So I've actually done a couple of tutorials, I believe, on using like Shodan with Maltego, because the people behind both are really, really nice, and I love working with them. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff out here if you want to plug into data sources, like BuiltWith, for example. So if you want to just like point at a server and then just see what technology they're using, this sort of fingerprinting technology is super cool, because you can see a breakdown of the tech that anybody's using to maintain their server or whatever is out there. So it's a really cool way of just being able to break down what kind of investments a company has made, or what kind of technologies they've decided to adopt, if you're interested in that sort of thing. So lots of really good stuff out here. I haven't done Alien Vault. I haven't done Abuse CH. Alien Vault is AT&T. I didn't know that. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff out here. If anybody on this list also wants me to do a guide on it, then give me an API key, you guys. I'll do a Gray Noise or whoever. So yeah, I just like to point out good resources. And in this case, this is a really cool one. So this is kind of controversial. When I brought this up, I kind of expected people to like agree with me, but I did not get that response initially. So let's talk about it. So not every home is perfect. And in the digital age, a lot of spyware tools kind of trickle down until they are used by, they're basically like bad exploits that aren't very good for international espionage or the kind of like stuff that you hear about in the news. So instead they become like stalkerware, or something you could use to track your spouse or your ex or your child. So when I was on Instagram the other day, I was just noticing that like they have a lot of very whack ads for businesses that like are either like out and out scams or like kind of unethical. And this one is one that really freaked me out. So it says what they say, how was your day? Fine. And this child is just like not, not disclosing what they mean. How was your day? I stayed up all night on TikTok because I wasn't allowed, because I couldn't sleep. And now I'm even more tired. Then after second period, I got kicked out of a group text, and Bella said it was just a joke, but I'm still not back in yet. I'm worried about the summer. I forgot to do my chores, and I know you're going to be upset with me, but I'm just so tired. And this says, parents, sometimes the only warning signs a child might be struggling with anxiety or depression are buried deep in their phones, right in their private zones. Bark scans text messages and social media posts for concerning content and sends you alerts when something might be wrong. So this is like persistent surveillance. Like basically they're like, hey, child, let's install a third-party like interception service, have it constantly scanning my child's stuff, have no idea where this information is being stored, what they're doing with it, whether they're using it to build a marketing profile on my child and sell it to like Facebook or like something else that's going to like use it for nefarious reasons. Like there are so many ethical concerns here. And also, what if your child is being like abused by you? this
Way
would
to build like a trusting relationship with your child.
Yeah, like what
obviously.
if your parents like are not perfect? Like I mean, my parents were not perfect, and I was just imagining in my home, like if the wrong person had access to this sort of thing, it really would have made things like a lot worse. So, some people were arguing like, oh, I need to be able to look over my child's shoulder and keep them safe on the internet. It's like, okay, maybe, but like, is like violating your child's privacy on such an intimate level that can so completely, is that going to teach them the right lessons about the world? Is that something that is actually going to like build your relationship of trust with them? Or is it just going to create a sense of betrayal? Like, it really is a question here, because being able to deploy spyware, like professional grade spyware, targeted at complete novices who are just interested in invading their child's privacy, I can also see somebody just looking at this and be like, I'll use this on my ex-girlfriend, So Alex, how do you feel about this sort of thing?
It's creepy, and I think it doesn't really do a good job of what they're advertising it to do. Because like I feel like this would give me more anxiety, and I would resent my parents if they installed something like that on my phone. It's just like straight up creepy and invasive.
Well, I mean, and you might not like imagine, for example, in your family, like somebody had
Right.
installed this on your phone and was using it to figure out like if you were reaching out for help, if
Right.
you were, doing things that like might otherwise make them feel like you were like doing something they wouldn't like. Like this would be a source of like interrogation or like other control.
Yeah.
To me, it just like seems sketchy. It seems like the people that it's marketed at are paranoid people who don't respect their children's limits or don't see anything wrong with invading their child's privacy. So for me, like I have a big issue with this sort of stuff that's marketed towards people that just, don't see this as an issue. And there's no real like the hook here is like, how do we make spying on your child? How do you make spying on your child palatable? Well, like let's say that your child is in danger and that the only way for you to protect your child is to spy on them relentlessly. Like that's a pretty that's a pretty like lame like excuse for just violating someone's privacy. Because if you're just like, oh well, maybe my girlfriend's depressed, I better spy on everything she does. Like why?
Right.
You
Yeah.
you ask them, or you build a relationship based on trust. You don't cheat and like just invade their privacy with like spyware. So again, you also don't know who you're plugging into your child's life. So this third party service, like, are they making money on the side? Are you sure? Do they secure their stuff properly? How could you even check? It just like, if you're going to have someone start spying on your child for you, you better make sure you trust that big brother, because they could be invading your child's privacy in other ways. Maybe their employees have unfettered access to your child's phone. Who knows? The problem is when you have novices trying to invade people's privacy for their own benefit, you get issues because they don't know what they're installing, and they're often trying to do it for nefarious reasons. So I do not like this. I think it sucks. I do not like this company. I don't like what they're selling, and I don't like who they're marketing it to.
Yeah. It's always like construed as like something that's, as you
Protecting
said, like
children.
palatable. Yeah. Like yeah. Oh, it's made to protect children, but it's going to be abused.
Exactly. And that moves us over very nicely to, oh wait, no, it's later. But later on, we have something by Eva at the EFF. And it's something that I think is a really good reminder of how when we start having this sort of technology, oh, it's just out there. We'll get there. When you start having this sort of technology out there, it's used by stalkers, it's used by abusive exes, it's used by abusive parents. And it's a trickle-down effect that not a lot of people think about in cybersecurity when you're working on an exploit or when you're working on something that could be used to spy on a person. So, okay, this is kind of the tail end of last week, but something we didn't do last week. Patrick Wardle had a great piece on how you can actually find a lot of malware out there that are able to get their malicious creations notarized by Apple. So the notary system is supposed to make it so it's more difficult to get like something snuck in and have it execute without raising a bunch of alarms and having the user have to do a bunch of extra stuff. But in this case, that failed. So you can see that there's a legitimate / required Flash player update signed by Roman Polismak. So like Patrick is a really excellent macOS security researcher, and he finds this sort of stuff all the time. But if you're curious how people are like sneaking like malicious files into macOS systems, and this is a really good kind of introduction on how that sort of thing works. So follow Patrick on Twitter, but also you can support him on Patreon, and he will like his blog posts are amazing breakdowns of a very technical but beginner friendly breakdowns on how this sort of stuff works and how he kind of turns these over and figures out what they do. So really, really cool and a great resource for people interested in macOS security. So this one's kind of wild. A woman apparently was working in a flight school and used her access to clear planes that had maintenance issues to fly. So presumably, I guess she wouldn't have to maintain them or something. So this is just a reminder of how a lot of these databases are really critical. And when it comes to securing things like planes, it's really important that somebody with employee access isn't going in there and modifying things like whether or not they need maintenance, because that could actually cause a plane crash. All right, so moving on. Facebook has a list of different organizations that cannot be freely discussed on their platform. This is something, I mean, it is censorship, and some of it is government mandated. They're given lists of terrorist organizations by the United States, but also you'll notice that the way that they prioritize these is kind of weird. So you can take a look at it on the Intercept, and the thing that's kind of interesting about this is domestic organizations that were kind of more involved with like Black Lives Matter and stuff, are more predominantly like featured on this list, or at least in more restrictive categories.
On the blacklist?
Yeah, on the blacklist. Than organizations that are like the far right organizations that are like militias and stuff like that, although there are a lot of militias on it. So you can see this is a breakdown. Violent non-state actors, 1%, criminals, 4.9%, hate groups, 17%, militarized social movements. A lot of militias are in here. Like I actually did not know. This is like a who's who of like militias in the United States. We'll go there in a second. Terrorism, 53%. So let's go and just take a look at the friggin' list, huh? Where is it? No. Is it at the bottom? I think it was up here. All right. So if we look at this list, we can see, let's go to the wait. Okay, so these are guidelines. So this is like what people use in order to actually like sort out whether or not they can apply these rules. So this is like important context, but actually not what I'm looking for. I think it is here. Oh, 100 pages. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So here we go. We see like terrorist groups, but as we go down further, and again, this is like 50% terrorism. We see Sinaloa cartel. We see the Bloods gang. Oh, I'm in LA. We see all sorts of stuff. The Popular Liberation Army of Colombia. These are like kind of international groups. We also see a couple United States-based groups, which is interesting. We can also see music bands, a lot of which are very vulgar, but I guess a lot of them are like related to hate speech. Then look at how many armed militia groups are in the United States.
Wow.
You guys, this is wild. American Patriot Council, next, like 3 pages later, Citizen Militia, Citizen Reaction Force, Citizens Militia of Louisiana.
It's a lot of militias.
There are Confederate People's Militia, that's concerning. Constitutional Security Force, Constitutional Republic Patriots, Dallas Militia, Dirty South Militia. That is my least favorite one by far. So if you want to just see a who's who of militias in the United States, did you guys know we had this many militias? Like, now I understand why nobody wants to invade us. True American Patriot Militia. I would not want to fight them. Like, they sound crazy. Oh, we can also see that these are also Tree of Liberty, Boog affiliated. Okay. So this is really, this is really like an exhaustive list of militias in the United States, which is interesting just because this is such a far right problem. But these are dangerous or individuals and organizations. This is still on a less restrictive list, tier of the list than some other organizations that might be considered to have like less of a threat profile because they're not as like heavily armed or like professed against the government. But that's really the kind of the meat of this. Is like, it's interesting to see who is banned from being discussed on Facebook and how they're organizing this sort of data. So all in all, very interesting look into the censorship that Facebook does in order to try to keep their platform secure. But there's a lot of nuance here and also a lot of kind of surprising entries on this list, although a lot of it is just from like an international terrorism database supplied by the United States. Okay, so Alex put together a really good resource on visualizing Wi-Fi data. So if you wanted to generate a graph of all the different Wi-Fi conversations that are happening right now and understand the relationship between Wi-Fi devices around you, you can use this awesome tool called AirGraphNG. Alex, you want to explain it?
Yeah, so it's like a little tool that builds off AeroDump, which is a monitor mode program with the AirCrack suite. So this allows you to get an idea of nearby Wi-Fi devices. So things like access points, client devices, things like that. And airgraph basically will take any data that you capture via airdump, turn it into like a little graph of like interconnected nodes. So you can basically visualize like what devices are connected to what access points, or like even what networks they might be probing for. So like if your cell phone is looking for a network it's seen before, or someone else's cell phone, you're able to basically pick up like what networks they've connected to and visualize it all through like one central graph.
Yeah, and if you want to see more about this, you can go to Hak5, and you can actually watch people asking Alex questions about where his hood went.
I haven't responded to those comments.
Right?
This is, I think, so confused.
Yeah, they're so confused. But you can see that people overwhelmingly like this video. So yeah, I think this is a really good one. It's already got 15,000 views. It was just uploaded on October 14th. So if you haven't seen it, it's a really great episode. Really goes into making it easy to oops, sorry, I didn't want to hack this page. Making it easy to understand like exactly like what is happening around you with devices connected to what. And also, if you just want to see a graph of your own home Wi-Fi network, super easy to put in some filters and see everything that's connected to everything on your home Wi-Fi network just in a visual way. Super awesome. Of course, it's not going to show Ethernet, so be aware of that. But from Wi-Fi anyway, you can see everything around you, where it's connected. And if there's something there you don't recognize, that could be the start of an investigation that lets you know, your neighbor maybe got that Wi-Fi password or something. All right, so also the Wi-Fi Nugget is getting ready for Halloween. We are actually hosting a workshop tomorrow. So if you're in the LA area and you want to come support an awesome hackerspace, Null Space Labs, you can catch us tomorrow. You can, well, I will tweet the link out, but we are going to be hosting a workshop where you can build your own Wi-Fi Nugget. And they're all decked out for Halloween. They're going to have spooky faces on. And you'll be able to load a couple of really, you
can see this one's color changing from orange to white. Spooky Halloween colors.
Yeah, so it turns from a pumpkin to a ghost. But you'll be learning how to load a couple awesome programs on here to detect Wi-Fi attacks, detect when your friends are nearby, right?
Right, yeah.
And also be able to program the lights on here to put your own faces or color animations on your Nugget. So if you're interested in building your own Wi-Fi Nugget, feel free to join us, raises some money for an awesome hackerspace, and it's good to see everyone. So yeah. If you can't make it, you can also still buy tickets and you can attend virtually and we will send you a Nugget, although it will take some time to get there. So we get a lot of questions about cryptocurrency, and I want to be very clear on this. We don't know anything about it, but we will accept questions on cryptoid currency. So if you have any questions about Bigfoot, the Mothman currency, or the Chupacabra, or also the Loch Ness Monster, we will be answering those questions on our Q&A. However, I have to say from now on, we will no longer be taking any cryptocurrency questions, just cryptoid currency questions. So sorry, we're not really into cryptocurrency. It seems a little bit like a fad, whereas, I mean, Nessie's been around for millions of years. So, just want to make sure you guys are all aware of that. And if you have any cryptoid currency questions, feel free to send us, all of them. But we don't want to hear any more cryptocurrency questions. We don't understand that. Alex, what's this?
That's glow-in-the-dark filament.
It sure is.
It sure is hard to print with.
It sure is. Great. So if you want to make anything that glows, it's actually possible to use a $150 Creality Ender 3 printer to make glowing 3D printed cases and other stuff. Yeah. However, the glowing material inside the filament makes it substantially rougher. So it will start to wear out the inside of your brass nozzle and kind of eventually ruin it. So yeah, it is very difficult to print, but we have successfully made some cases with it. They're really cool, but I don't think we're going to go to full production with them because it is rough to print.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this, to the surprise of no one, over 60 million wearable and fitness tracker records were exposed via an unsecure database. So this reminds me very much of when a bunch of military people got in trouble because they were going on their fitness runs and were recording it on their fitness app, but it was on classified military bases. So you could just look for weird places where there were people doing lots of runs, and you would just find all these military bases that no one was supposed to know about. So, this kind of stuff happens all the time. These sorts of things are particularly vulnerable because they report back to a database which may or may not be secured properly. And in this case, it looks like some over 60 million people got a great deal on getting their data exposed. Okay, and this one is, to me, a little bit funny, but so Sinclair TV stations, the one that constantly push out programming that local stations that they buy have to run, and some of which are a little bit maybe like misleading about like, you know, vaccines, stuff like that. They got hit by a ransomware attack. Isn't that sad? That's too bad. That's too bad for them. And it looks like because of that, they haven't been able to push a couple services like advertising and other sorts of pretty essential things to their local affiliate stations. So that has caused some of their stations to not be able to go on air or otherwise delay their broadcasts, which is, again, mildly funny. So I guess it remains to be seen whether or not they're going to pay the ransom, but it was interesting to see that now broadcast companies are getting hit with this too. Typically, like, you know, like companies that are more paranoid about this sort of thing will be pretty locked down, but I'm not super surprised by this breach. I don't know why, just something about, I don't know why. It just doesn't surprise me. So, all right, this one cost us a full month of copyright strike. So if you haven't seen it, please make sure to check out the Hackers React to Hacking Scenes from movies. Alex and I go through and take a look at a whole bunch of different hacking scenes and add our commentary. And we got so many copyright strikes on this. It also includes our most requested scenes run, which is Ron's coffee. So yeah, this was a really fun episode to film, and we had to go through an absolute battle to get this published. So if you haven't seen this already, make sure to check it out. It was a lot of fun. And if you guys like them, make sure to comment and we will make some more. I think we were probably going to do some on like Watch Dogs or some other video games that are a little bit less likely to give us a copyright strike, because man, we had to go to the mat in order to get this published, because one of the copyright claimants decided to not allow us to use it, even though it was obviously fair use. So we had to file a counterclaim, and basically they had to sue us in order to make this not go out. So it was yeah, it was a lot to get it out there, but we're happy that we did it, and it was a lot of fun. So okay, here we go. Eva has a really great talk at the Objective by the C conference. Hey Siri, find my ex, which is going over stalkerware and how it can be used. Well, stalkerware and things like air tags can be used in intimate partner abuse and surveillance. So this is kind of exactly what I was talking about when I say that these sorts of spyware programs that are marketed towards protecting children are actually tech-enabled abuse. So I really like Eva's work in making people understand the way that the stalkerware is able to impact people, because, you know, I get questions. Yesterday, literally, my hairdresser was asking me how she could hack her her boyfriend to find out whether or not he was up to something. And my advice is always the same. It's like, if you suspect something, then you probably already know. You know, like if you're willing to go through that process, then like you probably know. But a lot of people don't see it as any sort of violation or any sort of crossing of boundaries to just violate another person's privacy and start spying on them. So if you want to see this presentation, I think it's really good, and you should understand what kind of impact this has on people. And also, Eva has the best slides I've ever seen. I'm so jealous of these that I immediately regret like many of the presentations that I've done, and just like see how I could have done them better. So Eva's just great. She really finds a lot of great stuff. I recommend following her on Twitter. But yeah, the flip side of this is there are stalkerware companies that will gather up all this data, like I said, maybe about your kid, because you're like, I don't trust my kid, I bet he's up to something. And then they leak the data. So they don't even bother to protect the information that they're harvesting on innocent people. So like, this is like, if you're a kid whose parents are just really strict and crazy, and they start installing this on your phones, you could have all of your personal data leaked to the public, who might not have your best interest at heart, just because that third-party service isn't securing it properly. And this is just kind of sad. So a Chicago-based manufacturer of candies like Laffy Taffies, Nerds, and Sweet Tarts is having a hard time filling orders because they got hit with ransomware. So they can't figure out where to ship stuff or how to bill people. So arguably, these are like not the best candies that you would get at Halloween. So like, I mean, Nerds are pretty good, I'll say that. But like, you know, like Sweet Tarts and Laffy Taffy, like I take those last. So yeah, is this really going to impact like many people? I guess if these are your favorite candies, but if these are your favorite candies, then like.
That reminds me of a ridiculous tweet I put out like 2 years ago towards Hershey. I don't know if you remember that one.
I do.
Yeah, I put like a Raspberry Pi on top of an obviously smaller sized Hershey like Nugget chocolate, and I was like, hey, make sure you check your kids' Halloween candy because I found this C2 malware in it. And like the Hershey's team responded to me, they're like, "Oh no, please, sir, disclose to us where you got this candy. We'll fix it for you." Like that. Everyone was just flaming them in the comments. It was great.
Wow, that's great. I love it when corporations reach out and they have no idea what's going on. Hey, so we finally released our video, how do companies survive ransomware attacks and catch hackers before they strike? We filmed this for Hak5. You can see it on the Hak5 YouTube channel. And we also have our friend Killian came out on this. And you can see also Zam has a little cameo in this one. So Zam sent us this commemorative 2020 roll of 3D printed toilet paper. I actually don't know why we use this as a prop here, but I approved of it. So it looks great. But we have our co-host Killian here. We have Zam's trophy from the stream. So yeah, we definitely had a really awesome little cameo for some of the stuff from this stream on the Hak5 channel. And this video is doing really, really well. It just came out yesterday. It already has 11,000 views. So if you want to check it out, one of my favorite videos we've done for Hak5, and I think a really good explanation into how companies kind of posture themselves to detect and catch ransomware attacks. All right, so again, we're having a workshop on, well, tomorrow, actually. So if you want to join us in LA, or if you want to join us virtually, you can still sign up, and tickets do support awesome local hackerspace. So just wanted to mention that again. If you can make it, it would be great to either see you guys in person at Nullspace Labs to assemble some nuggets, or we'll ship you out a nugget. You can attend the class and get access to a recording of it, and this will help raise some money for Nullspace Labs. And I think, oh no, I got more stuff. All right, here we go. So about 45 million people live in Argentina, which is a lot. And the problem is that the government has apparently secured their ID information in a way that allowed a hacker to gain access and make it possible to just sell this information. So initially they were just on the dark web, or not dark web, on a hacking forum. They were offering to look up any Argentinian person's information in exchange for a fee. So they just became a de facto phone book, I guess. And initially the government was just saying that a compromised VPN account was being used to look up individual ID information, and they closed the breach. But now the hacker is saying that they actually have all the information, and they're going to start leaking details. And in fact, they did leak some additional details that made it look as though they do have the data. So the entire, like these are like photos and other information from, like, you know, everybody in Argentina, like famous people, politicians, sports people. Like it's pretty crazy. So if that data is leaked or sold, you can expect that there's going to be a lot of fallout from this. But for now, it looks like at least the government is saying it's not that bad of a breach, while the hacker is disagreeing and has provided some information that seems to contradict what the government has to say. So we'll see how this ends up working out. So this is a write-up of a really interesting vulnerability that was being exploited in the wild. I'm not gonna, like, basically the kind of high level of this is something was patched that was originally causing the possibility for a buffer overflow. And it was something that was able to be done because they weren't checking certain values. And now in the patch, it has been fixed. But initially this was something that was being used to create a condition where you could basically jailbreak a phone or start like arbitrarily running code. So if you want to see how that kind of process works, this was a really interesting write-up, and I thought that it's definitely worth checking out. So I'll drop this link, but I think that in particular, this is something that it walks you through how a proof of concept can be developed, especially for an iOS platform, and exactly what the impact of that sort of thing would be. So it's a little bit more technical than the average person, you know, might expect, but this person was able to get a panic on their iPhone just by developing this proof of concept that would take advantage of this buffer overflow. So in getting an overflow or getting something that causes a crash or a kernel panic is exactly what you want when you're going to start doing something like trying to jailbreak an iPhone. So in this case, very interesting vulnerability that was being exploited in the wild. I really like this name, Mystery Snail Attacks with Windows 0 Days. This is a Chinese-based group that has been going after Windows servers that are vulnerable to a particular type of exploit. It shares some commonality with like some previous exploits, but it was found to be a zero-day vulnerability. And it's obviously pretty wide-reaching. So this entire list of products could be vulnerable to it. So primarily this has been used for espionage so far. It's a use after free vulnerability that allows them to drop in some espionage and backdoor kits that have been used to spy on IT companies, governments, and other important targets. Again, this seems to be linked back to some sort of Chinese APT, but there's a RAT, remote access tool, that has been dropped from this. That's a Trojan that basically allows them to escalate their privileges once they use the initial attack. So this is kind of like an attack chain that's been observed. And yeah, if you want to read more about this, or if you run a Windows server and you're worried, make sure to check out the Kaspersky. Well, first, update your stuff because the patch has already been released, but then go ahead and take a look at this article going through which functions were exploited and what kind of logic was used to actually gain access here and spawn a rat tool. So it really goes into detail about what sorts of commands are supported by the rat and like what other sorts of activity you might be looking for. In this case, the indicators of compromise are listed here in case you're looking through DNS or something and you want to be able to make sure that it hasn't connected back to one of these C2 servers that's going to allow it to communicate. Okay, I love this. So Alex, did you know that you could use machine learning to basically figure out how random number generators work and then crack them?
I've thought about the concept before. That seems interesting. I've never seen an implementation. That's cool.
Yeah, so typically like machine learning works really, really well when you have large data sets. So when you have these random number generators and you can just generate like huge data sets, it seems like a pretty good use case for figuring out like the inner workings of those random number generators and being able to reverse them. So this has huge implications for things that generate random seeds based on these pseudo-random number generators. So some of this paper goes through how this guy was basically able to like break the way that this works and figure out how it works behind the scenes by applying machine learning. But there's also a follow-up paper where he does the same with a more complicated algorithm. So I just find this sort of research really, really cool because taking a supposed black box where you're not really supposed to know how it works and being able to reverse engineer it to find some sort of pattern in the noise is a really great application for machine learning because humans are not very good at it, whereas machines and computers are very, very good at it. So for breaking encryption or breaking other sorts of things that rely on a strong random number that's generated, this is something that in the future could get really, really interesting as these methods are refined and brought to scale. So really interesting to see people attacking these random number generators using machine learning because it just speeds up the process of figuring out how something works if you're not sure and you need to attack something like a pseudo-random number. Because computers aren't very good at generating random numbers. So the process or the ingredients behind creating one is really important information if you want to attack something like encryption. So this is more of a side note because I don't really know this tool too well, but a lot of people were talking about it. Do you know how to pronounce this? Loft crack?
Loft crack? I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure. Loft
L0 to crack.
Yeah, is now open source. So this is a tool that was developed forever ago for GPU cracking that you know, a lot of people really, really like, but has been bouncing back and forth between different owners until one of them went into bankruptcy and was repossessed by the previous people who had created it. So if you're interested in developing on this tool, or if you just want to check up on what it's like now, then it is now open source. So yeah, I guess this tool had a pretty good reputation in the community. I have not personally used it because I think that when I started getting into hacking, it was in the process of bouncing back and forth. So very cool that this is now an open source tool. So if you're interested in cracking, then you can check it out. And I think this is the final one. Oh no, that's just bleeping computer. I'm not going to go through that. That's pretty much all we have time for today. So covered a lot of stuff, and again, we were off for like last week. So lots of things that we covered today. But if you have any questions about this, then you could be entered to win a Hak5 gift card on the next Q&A stream. So make sure to leave questions on our upcoming stream because we will be picking one of the questions as we answer them to win a Hak5 gift card, just like the last, I think, 3 people who have submitted our best question have. So if you want to enter, you can submit a question on my Twitter. You can submit a question on the YouTube channel, and we will pick one during the stream. And yep, you'll get to buy something from the Hak5 store for up to $100 for free. So
great.
Thank you for joining me today, Alex. It's been a very interesting. What was your favorite article out of all these?
I think the one about that guy who made the covered a visualization tool for AeroDumpNG.
Oh, that was pretty cool. That was actually a really,
cool
really excellent episode.
Yeah,
probably
also
my
the same guy
research.
who made the Wi-Fi Nugget too. Right?
That guy seems like he's on a streak actually, because didn't he also make that other episode as well about like visual? Yeah, no.
He was also featured on that ransomware video.
I saw him as like a criminal hacker on the ransomware video too. He's just like everywhere right now. It's crazy. So yeah, check out that guy. He seems pretty cool. And I think my favorite one, aside from all those, of course, was Oh man, actually, like probably the pseudo random number generator thing.
Oh,
Like,
that
I
was
love like
cool.
sneaky machine learning things, and I remember going to a conference where like they started using machine learning to look for different classes of vulnerabilities and found a bunch of ones that humans just hadn't had time to find, based on like training these machine learning models on like the types of vulnerabilities, not like specific ones. So it was really interesting applications. I'm sure that there's more machine learning stuff that's going to be very, very central to cybersecurity. So I love seeing research like that. All right, so that's all we have today. We will see you guys next time. If you want to see more great Varonis content, make sure to check out the Varonis brand channel, where you can see the threat update with our co-host Killian, who was recently featured on Hak5. And we'll see you all next week. Bye.